to suffer from Alzheimer's disease. So why is insulin resistance a brain killer? For two reasons. First, as you now understand, insulin resistance causes brain cells to become dysfunctional, and they'll eventually die without the energy they need. Second, the enzyme that removes insulin is also responsible for removing beta amyloid, which is the primary protein that's associated with Alzheimer's disease. If you have high insulin levels, that means you'll also have faster and greater beta amyloid buildup. So clearly, you want to avoid insulin resistance and high insulin levels, and I'm going to show you how to do this. So how do you know if you're developing insulin resistance? Before it's too late, right? The good news is that before you realize what's happening in your brain, body-wide insulin resistance shows other signs of dysfunction, like weight gain around your waistline. That's a big giveaway. And elevated triglycerides, low HDL cholesterol, increased inflammation, and eventually high blood sugar levels. As you recall, 30% of all adults and 50% of baby boomers have insulin resistance. And having it makes you up to 60% more likely to develop Alzheimer's disease. But with this program, you'll discover how to reverse insulin resistance, and by doing so, you can improve the function of your brain. Now, it's been suggested by Dr. Melissa Schilling, a professor at New York University, that stopping insulin resistance may prevent up to 60% of the prevalence of Alzheimer's disease. And Dr. Bredesen from UCLA has published that multiple lifestyle interventions can prevent 80 to 90% of Alzheimer's disease. And I'm in total agreement with their breakthrough findings. So how does memory loss start, and when should you worry, right? Think of memory loss as a 20-year progression from having no cognitive problems to being disabled with Alzheimer's disease. The pre-symptomatic phase with no symptoms lasts about 5 years. This is when your memory might be worsening, but you haven't noticed that memory loss is a problem. Next comes the subjective cognitive impairment phase, when you're more forgetful, and although you and your friends may have noticed that you keep forgetting things, you're not impaired. You can still live in your home and work at your job. This phase typically worsens over 10 years. If you have subjective cognitive impairment without a dramatic change in lifestyle, you'll likely advance to mild cognitive impairment, which is the last step before Alzheimer's disease. Mild cognitive impairment does not mean just mild symptoms, but more specifically, mildly disabled. At this stage, you're more than absent-minded, as you're now impaired, meaning if you work, you may no longer be capable of doing your job well. And although you may be able to live at home, it may be a real challenge to pay your bills and be safe. On average, this so-called mild cognitive impairment worsens over the next 5 years, which makes my program incredibly important for you, as it's essential that if you have either subjective or mild cognitive impairment, that you stop the decline and improve your brain function before it's too late. Finally, if you don't make any changes, you'll likely progress to Alzheimer's disease, and now you're truly disabled. You're no longer able to live on your own, and you become a burden on your family and on the people you love. Once you have advanced Alzheimer's disease, you'll likely lose your ability to eat, to talk, or walk. You can't dress yourself, and you become incontinent, usually forced to wear diapers. Over a few years, you'll suffer and die. But don't forget, as dreadful as this sounds, we can prevent this. Now, reversing Alzheimer's disease is incredibly challenging. It's like blowing out the match that started the brush fire after the fire is roaring. You need to blow out the match before the brush catches fire. The key is to work on improving your cognitive function starting today, before any of these symptoms occur, to create a better brain and to prevent memory loss, especially if you're at risk. So how do we know who's at risk for insulin resistance and memory loss? Well, sadly, because it's so common, that's a lot of people. Factors that put you at high risk for memory loss are diabetes and insulin resistance, a family history of Alzheimer's disease, a history of a head concussion, a history of depression, or an ApoE4 genotype, which I'll discuss later. No matter what your age, it's not too late to reverse damage, and it's never too early to prevent it. If you could become 25% mentally sharper, quicker, more productive, wouldn't that be fantastic? Let's start by looking at several factors that you can control. We'll continue to pay particular attention to insulin resistance and elevated blood sugar levels. But the other critical risk factors are physical and mental inactivity, poor food choices, nutrient deficiencies, unmanaged stress, brain toxin exposure. And this program is designed to help all of those issues. Several recent studies have confirmed that combining multiple lifestyle interventions at once is far more effective than only doing one step by itself. So for the best results, please be sure to follow as many of the steps in my program as you can. I promise I'm going to make it both fun and easy to do. The result of following this plan means a rejuvenated, sharper, quicker, more productive brain while feeling better at the same time. If that's not enough, this same program has been shown to help shrink artery plaque and reverse heart disease. And for many of my patients, they're even able to wean off many of their medications. And on top of that, they say they sleep better, have more energy, and better romantic function too. Now, who wouldn't want that? Right? So would you like to hear what are the steps to a better brain? Yes! I bet you do. Here are the first two steps, or actually, the last two steps, is I'm going to give them to you in reverse order, and they get more fun as we go. But remember, they all work together. They're interconnected like a web. Step 5, protect your brain from toxins. Now, there are many toxins out there that can injure your brain. Some are obvious, and some are not. Just to name a few, tobacco use and excess alcohol, mercury, inorganic copper, nitrosamines, and pesticides. Perhaps the most misunderstood would be nitrosamines. This is the chemical they put in processed meats to preserve them and increase their shelf life. You find them in sandwich meats, hot dog, sausage, pepperoni, and bacon. You may have read about studies showing that they increase your risk for cancer. They do. Scientists have shown that administering nitrosamines to rodents will not only cause insulin resistance and diabetes, but will also lead to brain cell injury and Alzheimer's disease. So read food labels. Make sure you aren't getting this toxin in highly popular foods, such as bacon. Instead, enjoy the many brands that are now organic, pasture-raised, nitrosamine-free meat products. And in my supporting materials, I'll show you how. Pesticide exposure is also very harmful and is associated with a greater risk for memory loss. In a study with nearly 1,000 older adults, the people with the highest levels of pesticides were 350% more likely to develop dementia than those with low pesticides. I mean, that's scary, right? So try to purchase organic produce and organic animal protein whenever possible. Okay, step 4, manage your stress. You may not think of it this way, but stress gives you challenge and purpose, which are good for you. When you're stressed, your cortisol levels shoot up. I mean, after all, cortisol is the stress response hormone. In the short term, cortisol sends sugar and minerals to your bloodstream so you're ready to get the heck out of Dodge if you need to. But long term, high levels of cortisol cause your blood sugar levels to rise, your bone and muscle mass to diminish, and it injures the memory center of your brain, the hippocampus. Chronic stress literally causes your memory center to shrink. Here's a quick test I do to see whether someone's under stress. I'll have you take a look at a picture of 2 dolphins jumping out of the water. The dolphins are essentially identical, but in spite of that, A person under stress usually finds many differences between them. So look at the picture. If you see more than one or two differences, you may need to do a better job of managing your stress. By the way, laughter is really great for stress management, so be sure to laugh every day. The key isn't just to avoid stress, as that's really hard to do. It's much more effective to focus on managing your stress, and common activities help you manage your stress include daily exercise to burn away stress, and make it fun. Adequate sleep, and for most people, at least 7 to 8 hours of good quality sleep every night. And don't neglect meditation, prayer, and having peace and calm in your day. I want you to care enough about your brain to focus on several of these activities every day. One thing that is commonly used to manage stress, but doesn't help, is alcohol. Don't get me wrong, I'm not against having 1 or 2 glasses of red wine with dinner, as I think that's a healthy habit. But drinking alcohol to manage stress is kind of like taking a Tylenol for pain when you're sitting on a tack. Yes, it does make it feel better, but it doesn't really help deal with the problem. It's important to accept some stress because it challenges your brain, but take steps to manage long-lasting stress so it doesn't shrink your brain. Coming up in Act 2, we're going to bust a few myths. Plus, I'm going to share the specific foods and nutrients you can use to boost your brain power and tell you the ones that are harming it. Do you want to know what foods will protect your brain? Yes! Then stay tuned. I'll be right back. Do you believe